Welcome back to Citizens Forum. Our guest in this segment is Bill MacDonald of the Greater Victoria Light Rail Society. And we're going to be talking about rail and trams in Victoria. Bill, you just told me you've been working on this for about 30 years.
Plus.
And you haven't been that successful, even though this is the best idea in the world.
Yes, things have not gone as quickly or as we thought it would happen. Back in the early 90s, we thought for sure we were going to get the first phase of a light rail system, which was going to be the Victoria Cord historic streetcar line, going from the cruise ship docks through downtown, and an undetermined endpoint at this point. I think it was around maybe Mayfair, or maybe as far as Uptown. So this is
in the 1990s, that looked doable.
Yes.
And I remember you did a survey at that time, just going around asking people or businesses around town.
We did a very thorough survey in 1994. We had lots of help. We had Teresa Samanis from a graduate from the University of Victoria who headed up the project. Marvelous. The results were overwhelmingly supportive of light rail transit. I mean, like 90%.
Yeah, I remember.
And this is businesses and the public as well. I mean, it is the best way to go by far. If you want to enhance your city, you want to really make the downtown viable, you got to build light rail transit. There's no question about it. It's successful wherever it's been put in.
And yet, so let's say here we are right now, it's 2014. Climate change is an oncoming disaster, plus just pollution in general. We've got to move away from the automobile. So let's look at building light rail. Now, you said the original idea was for a line starting at the cruise ship, so running through James Bay.
That's correct. The original line that the Society had put forward was going from the cruise ship docks in James Bay through downtown, either single line up Douglas Street or single line up Government Street, and back on either one or both lines on one. All the way through to the first line was all the way through to the Western Communities to Langford, which is about 18 kilometers. You could have a branch line at Uptown to the ferry terminal, and then to the University of Victoria. You could run direct trains from Langford Colwood right through to the ferry terminal, or to the university, or into downtown Victoria and to the cruise ship docks, and reverse, the same thing.
When you were talking about that back in the 1990s, what was the price tag?
$300 million.
Okay, and that was...
Lee did a study back in 94, and the cost was $300 million.
Now, who did the study?
N.D. Lee.
And who is N.D. Lee?
It was a company out of Vancouver, I believe.
Consultants?
Consultants,
okay.
Yes.
So, I mean, we all know that prices go up, but let's say we could have done it for $400 million back then. And that was a line from the cruise ship docks all the way out to Langford.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. Imagine if we'd have done that. And that was the NDP back then, in government, the provincial government. And instead, they spent all that money. They spent the same amount of money fixing up the highway. And now, 20 years later, the biggest traffic problem in town is that very highway, which everybody told them about at the time. And we still don't have light rail.
Well, I lived out in the Western Communities for 33 years, and I've seen no change. It's gotten worse and worse ever since.
Yeah.
And it will never get fixed unless they put a proven alternative in place, which is light rail. Light rail is not going to solve everything, but it's certainly going to reduce your congestion. And when you see certain parts of the video that we put together, you can see that there's room on the roads in Europe and all the cities. With even just one lane going each direction, there's still room on the road. But here, we've only got two major corridors that funnel the traffic into Victoria, and they're plumb full. And the more roads you build, it's just going to bring more cars. That's the way it's worked. It doesn't go to the reverse. So we can't do that. We can't continue to go that way. And somehow we've got to get through to the governments that we must, if we're serious about the environment, we want to reduce greenhouse gases and all the rest of it, you have to look at going to alternative energies to move people.
Now, I've largely stopped taking the buses because I'm tired of standing and waiting. In the morning, if you're like I used to live in Saanich, and I'd take the bus in every morning, and then I switched to bicycle. But that was fine. In the morning at the rush hour, the buses are pretty fast. But in general, I find them very noisy, very bumpy, very uncomfortable, poorly lit. Somebody's always playing loud music. I've seen, you see things on the buses that it's just not that pleasant. Somebody years ago called it a loser cruiser, told me that was the name. Well, that's not how I remember public transit when I was growing up. Now, you've traveled a lot in Europe, and you say it's not really like that over there. And it's because people are more mindful.
That is the case. You don't find disturbances on the buses like you do here from time to time. People seem to be much more respectful of each other, and also the systems themselves. They take pride in their vehicles. They take pride in a system, making sure that it's efficient, that it runs well, that it's comfortable, and they have announcements before all the stops. Here we are in 2014, and we still don't have that in Victoria. And yet we're paying one of the highest prices for fares in Victoria, at $2.50 a cash fare. That's not cheap.
No, that's not cheap. That's
absolutely not cheap. In Europe, you get reasonable rates for traveling. You can get I'll give you Zurich. It costs 10 Swiss francs, which is pretty close to 10 Canadian dollars, maybe a little bit more. You get a 24-hour pass. It's good from the time you validate it to the next day. If you start at 8 o'clock in the morning, it's good to 8 o'clock the next morning. At 24 hours. And then the driver doesn't have to worry about collecting fares, because they have checkers that get on board and they check. And if you don't pay your fare, you get a ticket, or even taken off the
Where
vehicle.
Was this?
In Zurich.
Yeah, they know how to do it. They know how to do it. And I mean, also in Switzerland, you don't have the poverty so that people can't afford to buy a ticket, right? I mean, they have a more balanced economy. And to me, I remember when you and others were fighting so hard back in the 90s to get light rail into Victoria. And that was one loss we had. But it's like our whole society is being treated the same way. Light rail is one example of how much better things could be, except the wrong people are running the country. And when I say the wrong people, I don't mean if you elect a different group, it's going to be any different. It's that the public doesn't have a voice. You said there was massive support for light rail.
Well, according to the survey, we did 3 surveys, but according to our last survey in 1994, the support was, around 90%. Well, that's huge. And this was we went to the downtown businesses. We went to public bus stops. We did several different places to take this survey, and it's just no contest. People want it. Businesses want it. It's got to be good. Businesses got to want it, because it's people that buy, not cars. So the more people you can bring into the city, the more vibrant the city's going to be.
Yeah. And the loss of the rail bridge, the Blue Bridge, the rail bridge next to the Blue Bridge, cut out what would probably be the cheapest route, the cheapest way of bringing trains from Langford into downtown. I mean, the rail line is still sitting there.
Mm-hmm.
It's I mean, is there a number, a cost? Let's say the rail bridge was back. The rail bridge had never been taken out, so we still had the ENN link going right into the downtown. What would be a cost for getting a service going on that line tomorrow?
I'm not entirely sure, but I believe there's some other improvements that would have to be made, certainly in the track and the ties and what have you. But you might be looking at 20 million maybe from Langford into Victoria.
Yeah, and let's say we tripled that to 60 million, okay?
Well, then you could probably do a full service. You know, I mean, and also, in my opinion, you shouldn't be running Bud cars. These are ancient cars. They should be retired. Yeah, we should be running conventional light rail cars with one operator, you know, and they're available. Bombardier builds them, Siemens builds them, or other companies that build them. In fact, several years ago, back in the middle 90s, Siemens offered Victoria the free use of a light rail car for 6 months, and they turned it down.
When was this? In the
middle 90s, so around 1994, 1995.
And that car would have run
from Langford into Victoria.
And they turned it down.
A free trial. and it was, I don't know whether it was Esquimalt now, because it's so long ago, I don't know whether it was Esquimalt or whether it was View Royal, but someone turned it down. One of the municipalities. And I don't want to get on that too, because I'd like to see amalgamations. Too damn many municipalities, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Well, I won't agree with you on that one, but I will agree with you on light rail. I mean, and that's the way things operate here. You know, it's like the public wants light rail. I think the public still wants light rail.
And we have
a chance for a car to show us what it's going to be like, and somehow, just mysteriously, the offer gets turned down. We never even hear about it. We never know about it. This is, you know, I mean, maybe I heard about it 15 years ago from you, but, you know, it's crazy, and it's just it's a symbol of how so much is wrong in the country, because the people who run the country don't give a damn about the people, the citizens.
Right. Well, last July 1st, we had a big display on the Gorge for Canada Day, and the amount of support that came to our display was unreal. I don't think I had more than 2 negative people the whole day that I was there.
And, I mean, you just had some pictures of light rail systems?
Yeah, we had our display up there showing what the vehicles look like and examples from other cities. And people said, why hasn't this happened? It's because there's been no political will to see it happen.
Yeah, and in fact, there's been exactly the opposite.
Yes.
You know, I mean, right now they're talking about building a new overpass, and at Mackenzie and Admirals, I guess. That's $100 million right there, I think, is the number they're talking about. We could have the line fully going 100% super line from Langford into downtown. You could even build a new rail bridge and throw that in for the $100 million price, but it's never even mentioned. The media won't mention it. Yeah, I mean...
Do you realize the highest subsidy is paid to the automobile?
Yes.
They get the highest subsidy of any form of transportation. But you'd be surprised at how many people don't realize that.
Because it's never mentioned in the media.
They don't want to mention it. You notice if there's improvement going to be made on the highway, there's no talk about negotiating a price for it.
No, it's just wonderful.
Just go.
Let's do it.
I heard they come up with a price of $15 million to do that upgrade on the near Shawnigan Lake. I don't know whether that's fact or fiction. But when I go up there and I see blasting rock out, cutting trees down, that the fill, cover, and all the rest of it, for $15 million, I don't believe that.
Yeah.
I don't think it can be done for $15 million. It just doesn't make any sense. It's quite a distance, and there's a lot of blowing of rock out. That's not cheap to do.
But there's never money for
there's
rail.
Never money for rail.
Yeah. Bill, we got a couple of minutes left. I mean, what do you want to say? What else can we say about light rail? What can people do? How can people make it happen? What can we do?
I think you're going to use every bit of your effort and contact the politicians at every level, municipal, provincial, federally. You got to get them to move on this. We can't continue to wait, and they procrastinate. This has to be done.
Yeah, it's really up to us, the people of this city. You know, we've got to somehow, I mean, I don't know how we can, if we want it. I mean, if we don't want it, then of course we shouldn't have it. But if we do want it, then our politicians should be making it happen for us. Instead, we do want it, but the politician's job is to make sure that nothing ever happens. And who are they working for? I mean, federally, provincially, municipally. There's nothing on this.
They should be working for the voter.
Yeah.
It's a shame. I mean, we got a lovely city, generally speaking, but it could be so much better.
Yeah, and we have to.
And much more lively and friendly and safe. All these things are so important, and we're ignoring them.
Yes, yes, and light rail is a part of that. With the safety issue, I mean, we can certainly deal with that as well. I mean, they deliberately create poverty, which creates problems in our society, and you know, you have to wonder why that's happening. Is there a plan of some kind in place that people can see that says, here, for this amount of money, we can start to make something happen starting tomorrow or next week? Is there any document that...
Well, BC Transit, as I said, they did this study, you know, not that long ago, and they can implement these things in phases, as what was originally planned, I believe.
And what was the study about?
On light rail and implementing it in from downtown, or your terminus from, you know, maybe at the cruise ship terminal into town. I mean, you could do it in phases. They've done it in other cities.
Yeah. Somehow, you know, you don't even know how to make it start to happen, but it's got to happen. It's just one more thing.
People have to get busy and get onto their politicians at every level. Tell them, we need this, and we need it now. We've had enough delays, years and years and years of studies and delays. For what purpose? When this is a practical solution that's facing us, and we're missing the boat.
It's, I mean, I think they just don't want it. They want us driving cars, and they don't, and buying cars, burning oil. That's our job. They won't let us have a more progressive system. Bill MacDonald, thank you very much. The Greater Victoria Light Rail Society, 30 years of fighting a very, very just fight against really overwhelming odds.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate the time here.
Yeah. And folks, we can all do something about this if we're interested. I know everybody's busy, and you know, it's difficult to get through to the politicians and the media. It doesn't work for us, but this is something that is important. I hope your website address will be, or something will be running, and people can get in touch with you. Thanks for watching Citizens Forum.